The subtle chill you feel isn't just the office air conditioning. It's the creeping realization that the ground beneath your professional life is shifting, not by seismic corporate changes, but by the almost imperceptible, insidious actions of someone you likely see every day. You're here because a disquieting question has taken root in your mind. Is your colleague secretly sabotaging you? This isn't about paranoia, it's about piercing the veil of workplace personas, looking into the shadowed corners of human psychology, and recognizing the warning signs before your career, your sanity, or your very sense of self becomes collateral damage. We're not just going to skim the surface of office politics. We're diving deep into the murky waters of the unconscious mind, both yours and theirs, drawing on the profound insights of psychology, particularly the work of Carl Jung to unmask the saboteur. This is for those of you feeling stuck, tired of trying to make sense of dynamics that leave you drained and questioning your competence. This is about recognizing self-sabotage not just within, but as it's mirrored and amplified by those around you. We'll explore how these external attacks can trigger your own shadow material, how a colleague's unintegrated darkness can poison the environment, and how understanding these dynamics is the first step to breaking destructive cycles and reclaiming your power. This journey is about personal development forged in the fires of adversity, about transforming from a target into an individual so rooted in your own truth that no external manipulation can uproot you. Prepare for a brutally honest look at the warning signs, because waking up to these truths is the only way to truly change your life and navigate the often treacherous path of individuation in a world that frequently prefers conformity and masks. Let's dissect the warning signs not as mere behavioral quirks, but as manifestations of deeper psychological currents. First warning sign: the chameleon of undermining, public praise, private poison. This individual is a master of the persona, the carefully crafted mask presented to the world. In public, they are your most vocal cheerleader. They'll applaud your ideas in meetings, offer seemingly supportive comments, and maintain an air of collegial warmth. But then the private moments happen, the subtly dismissive remark in a smaller group, the helpful suggestion that is actually a veiled criticism designed to plant seeds of doubt, not in others, but primarily in you. Their humor is often a scalpel, making incisions so fine you barely notice the bleeding until later. Just joking, they'll say, if you ever dare to look wounded, a classic deflection to make you question your own perception, your own sensitivity. From a Jungian perspective, this is a glaring example of a fractured self, where the persona is wildly incongruent with the shadow. The shadow, that part of the unconscious mind that houses our repressed insecurities, envies, and unacknowledged negative traits, is seeping through the cracks of their polished facade. Their public praise might be a conscious attempt to maintain a good person image, or even a way to gather intelligence and appear non-threatening. But the private poison is the shadow's true voice. They might be projecting their own feelings of inadequacy onto you. Perhaps your competence, your light, your potential for individuation unconsciously reminds them of their own stagnation, their own refusal to confront their shadow. So they try to dim your light. Imagine a colleague, let's call him Alex. Alex publicly lauds your project proposal, calling it innovative and exactly what the department needs. Later, over coffee with a few others, he might say, "It's a great idea, of course, ambitious. Maybe a little too ambitious for our current resources, don't you think? We wouldn't want your name to burn out or overpromise." See the shift, the public support now subtly reframed as a concern that paints you as potentially naive or reckless. He hasn't directly attacked you, but he's sown a seed of doubt. If this happens repeatedly, the cumulative effect is an erosion of your confidence and potentially your colleague's perception of your judgment. The negative consequence of ignoring this sign is that you internalize their subtle undermining. You start to doubt your abilities, your judgment, your very sanity. You might find yourself second-guessing perfectly good ideas or shrinking from taking initiative, all because their insidious whispers have become part of your inner dialogue. You become stuck not just by their actions, but by your unconscious absorption of their projected negativity. What's the actionable step? First, radical self-awareness. Start journaling these instances. Note the discrepancy between their public persona and private behavior. How do these interactions make you feel? That feeling is your intuition, your unconscious, signaling a disturbance. This isn't about collecting evidence for a confrontation, though that might be necessary later. This is about validating your own reality. Second, begin to consciously detach your self-worth from their pronouncements. Their behavior is a reflection of their internal landscape, their unintegrated shadow, not a true measure of your worth or competence. Strengthen your inner locus of control. Your value comes from within, from your work, your integrity, not from the flickering approval or disapproval of a fractured individual. Observe them as you would a psychological case study. This emotional distance is your shield. This is the beginning of reclaiming your psychic space, a crucial step in your individuation journey. The second warning sign, the gatekeeper of shadows, information withheld, opportunities obscured. This colleague operates from a position of perceived power derived from controlling the flow of vital information. They might forget to include you in crucial email chains, neglect to share important updates from meetings you couldn't attend, or provide you with incomplete or misleading data necessary for your tasks. It's rarely a blatant refusal. More often, it's presented as an oversight, a busy schedule, or a misunderstanding. Yet the pattern is undeniable and the impact is significant. You're left operating in the dark, making decisions based on incomplete pictures and potentially failing or underperforming as a direct result. Psychologically, this behavior often stems from a deep-seated insecurity and a desperate need for control. This individual may fear their own irrelevance. By becoming an indispensable conduit of information, they create a dependency, making themselves feel powerful. This can be seen as a shadow aspect of the magician archetype, where the wisdom and knowledge that could be used for collective good are instead hoarded and manipulated for personal gain and dominance. Their own journey of individuation may be profoundly stuck. They haven't found their intrinsic value, so they seek to manufacture it by creating bottlenecks and dependencies. Their unconscious fear might be that if everyone has the information, their own unique contribution will be diminished. Consider Sarah, who consistently forgets to pass on client feedback to you until it's almost too late to act on it, or Mark, who gives you a dataset for a report but omits a crucial variable, only to point it out after you've presented your flawed findings. The saboteur might even frame their eventual tardy sharing of information as them saving the day or helping you out, further twisting the narrative. This is designed to keep you off balance, to make you feel perpetually behind or incompetent. The negative consequence of letting this slide is clear. Your performance suffers, your stress levels skyrocket, and you may begin to be perceived by others as unreliable or inefficient, precisely the reputation the saboteur wants to cultivate for you. You remain stuck in a cycle of catching up, fixing avoidable errors, and feeling constantly undermined. This erodes your professional standing and, more insidiously, your trust in your work environment and even your own ability to stay informed. The actionable steps here require a multi-pronged approach. Firstly, become meticulously proactive about seeking information. Don't wait for it to come to you. After meetings, send follow-up emails summarizing your understanding of key decisions and action items, CCing relevant parties. This creates a paper trail and makes it harder for information to be forgot. If you suspect you're being left out, politely and directly inquire. I want to ensure I'm up to speed on Project X. Could you confirm I'm on the distribution list for all related comms? Secondly, build alternative information networks. Cultivate relationships with other colleagues. Don't rely on a single source, especially when you suspect. Thirdly, and this is where the deeper work lies, examine your own response. Does this situation trigger old wounds of being excluded or feeling powerless? Your emotional reaction, while valid, can be a teacher. Use journaling to explore these feelings. Understanding your internal triggers can help you respond more strategically and less reactively. The ultimate goal is not just to get the information, but to develop such a strong internal sense of direction and resourcefulness that no single gatekeeper can truly block your progress. This is about taking radical responsibility for your own awareness. Third warning sign: the credit cannibal, feasting on your ideas and achievements. This is one of the most brazen forms of sabotage. The colleague who shamelessly takes credit for your work, presents your ideas as their own, or subtly positions themselves as the driving force behind your successes. They might co-opt a suggestion you made in passing and elaborate on it in a meeting as if it were their original concept. Or they might take a report you largely authored, make a few superficial changes, and put their name first or solely. At its psychological root, this behavior screams of a fragile ego and a profound lack of individuation. An individual who is securely on their path to self-realization, who has a healthy sense of their own capabilities and creative potential, feels no need to steal from others. The credit cannibal, however, has likely failed to cultivate their own inner resources. Their persona, the mask they show the world, might be one of competence and innovation, but it's a hollow facade built on the pilfered achievements of others. They are, in a Jungian sense, psychically starved, and they try to nourish their depleted ego by consuming the vitality and creativity of those around them. They haven't done the difficult inner work to unearth their own unique talents, so they become parasites on the talents of others. Their own shadow of inadequacy and lack of originality drives this compulsive appropriation. Imagine a scenario. You spend weeks developing a unique solution to a persistent problem. You casually mention the core concept to a colleague, David, during a brainstorming session. The next week, David presents a fully fleshed-out proposal based on your exact concept to senior management, barely acknowledging your initial contribution, if at all. He basks in the praise while you're left feeling invisible and robbed. Or perhaps it's more subtle. You lead a team effort, but a particular team member consistently speaks about the project using I instead of we when talking to superiors, subtly shifting the perceived locus of success. The negative consequences are manifold. Firstly, there's the direct impact on your career. Missed recognition, bypassed promotions, and a diminished reputation if others believe the credit cannibal's narrative. Secondly, and perhaps more damagingly, it can lead to a feeling of deep disillusionment, anger, and a reluctance to share ideas in the future. This stifles your creativity and can make you cynical and withdrawn, exactly what the saboteur, consciously or unconsciously, desires. You become tired of trying because what's the point if your efforts are simply co-opted? Actionable steps must be decisive and strategic. First, meticulous documentation is your ally. Keep records of your ideas, drafts, email exchanges, and contributions. Date your work. If you share an idea verbally, follow up with an email. Further to our chat, I was thinking more about your idea. This creates a time-stamped record. Second, when your credit is stolen, you must choose your battles, but often speaking up is necessary. This doesn't have to be a loud confrontation. It can be a calm, factual correction, either directly to the individual or, if necessary, to relevant stakeholders. For example, David, that's an excellent elaboration on the concept I was developing and shared with you last Tuesday. I'm glad you see its potential too. This reclaims your authorship without being overly aggressive. Consider the power dynamics and potential repercussions carefully. Third, and this is crucial for your personal development, is to ask yourself, what in me allowed this to happen? Was it a fear of asserting ownership, a reluctance to self-promote? Sometimes our own shadow aspects, perhaps a fear of the spotlight or an underdeveloped assertiveness, can inadvertently create a vacuum that credit cannibals are quick to fill. This isn't victim blaming. It's about empowering yourself to plug those vulnerabilities, develop a stronger voice, own your contributions. Your individuation journey demands that you not only have ideas, but that you learn to stand by them and champion them as your own. Fourth warning sign: the reality warper, master of gaslighting and doubt. This is perhaps one of the most psychologically damaging forms of sabotage. The gaslighter systematically attempts to make you doubt your own memory, perception, and sanity. They will deny saying things you distinctly remember them saying, twist your words to mean something you never intended, or insist that events unfolded in a way that contradicts your clear recollection. Common phrases include, "You're being too sensitive," "I never said that," "You're imagining things," or "You're blowing this out of proportion." The aim is to erode your confidence in your own mind, making you easier to control and manipulate. From a psychological standpoint, gaslighting is a severe and insidious form of emotional abuse. The gaslighter is often projecting their own inability to face reality, their own deceit, or their own distorted perceptions onto you. They create a fog of confusion and doubt because they cannot tolerate clarity or accountability. This individual likely has profound shadow issues, possibly narcissistic tendencies, and a desperate need to control the narrative and, by extension, you. By making you question your reality, they dismantle your internal compass, your connection to your own intuition and unconscious wisdom, which are essential guides on the path of individuation. They attack the very foundation of your selfhood. Imagine you confront a colleague, Lisa, about consistently missing deadlines that impact your work. Lisa responds, "I don't know what you're talking about. I always get my work in on time. You must be mistaken or stressed." She says this with such conviction that you momentarily falter, even though you have clear evidence to the contrary. Or perhaps you raise a concern about a comment they made and they reply, "Wow, you really read into things, don't you? I was just trying to be helpful." It's a shame you're so easily offended. Suddenly, the focus is on your supposed oversensitivity, not their inappropriate behavior. Over time, these interactions can make you feel like you're losing your mind. You start to feel stuck in a surreal, constantly shifting reality. The negative consequences of enduring gaslighting are devastating. It can lead to anxiety, depression, a complete loss of self-esteem, and a profound sense of isolation. You begin to distrust your own judgment in all areas of your life, not just at work. You become conditioned to accept their version of reality, making you increasingly vulnerable to further manipulation. This is the antithesis of personal development. It's a process of psychological dismantling. The actionable steps here are about rebuilding your fortress of self-trust. First, trust your gut. Your intuition is a powerful instrument. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't let someone else's assertions override your internal sense of truth. Second, keep meticulous records. Write down conversations, dates, times, specific phrases used, especially those that attempt to distort reality. This isn't just for evidence against them, but as an anchor for your own memory and sanity. Reviewing your notes can reaffirm that you are not imagining things. Third, seek external validation from trusted friends, mentors, or even a therapist who understands psychological manipulation. Describe the situations and your feelings. Hearing an objective third party confirm that the behavior is indeed gaslighting can be incredibly validating. Fourth, minimize interaction with the gaslighter as much as humanly possible. If you must interact, keep it brief, factual, and in writing where possible. Do not engage in arguments about past events. They will only twist things further. State your position or need and disengage. Finally, and most importantly, engage in practices that strengthen your connection to your inner self: mindfulness, journaling about your perceptions and feelings, validating them yourself, and any activity that helps you feel grounded and centered in your own truth. Reclaiming your mind is paramount. This is a brutal battle, but winning it means you emerge with an unshakable connection to your own psyche, a core component of individuation. Fifth warning sign: the reputation assassin, weaving webs of gossip and slander. This saboteur works in the shadows, not always through direct confrontation, but by subtly or overtly poisoning your reputation amongst colleagues, superiors, or even clients. They spread rumors, twist truths into damaging narratives, highlight your minor mistakes while downplaying your successes, or selectively share information that paints you in a negative light. Their goal is to isolate you, discredit you, and undermine your influence and trustworthiness within the organization. Psychologically, the reputation assassin is often driven by intense envy, insecurity, or a malicious aspect of their shadow. They may see your competence, your positive relationships, or your potential as a threat to their own standing or self-esteem. Unable or unwilling to elevate themselves through genuine merit, they resort to tearing others down. They are essentially trying to destroy your persona, the social mask and reputation you've built, because it highlights the deficiencies in their own, or because your authentic persona triggers their unacknowledged shadow self. They project their own disowned negative qualities, e.g. untrustworthiness and incompetence, onto you, then warn others about the very traits they embody. This is a desperate attempt to feel superior or to deflect attention from their own shortcomings. Consider a colleague, Tom, who, after you successfully land a new client, starts making concerned comments to others. Yes, it's great your name got that client, but I hope they can handle the pressure. They seemed a bit overwhelmed on that last small project, didn't they? Or perhaps they subtly imply you took shortcuts or bent rules without ever making a direct accusation that could be easily refuted. They might accidentally let slip a piece of negative, out-of-context information about you to someone influential. The key is the insidious nature. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts to your reputation. The negative consequences are obvious: damaged professional relationships, missed opportunities for collaboration or advancement, and a general sense of being unfairly judged or disliked. You might find people are suddenly cool towards you, or that you're being left out of important discussions without understanding why. This can lead to immense frustration, a feeling of helplessness, and a toxic work environment where you feel constantly on edge, wondering what's being said behind your back. You're stuck in a web of unseen attacks. The actionable steps require wisdom, integrity, and a focus on what you can control. First, consistently maintain high standards of integrity and performance in your own work. Your solid track record and ethical behavior are your best defense against slander. Truth in the long run often has a way of surfacing. Second, build strong, genuine relationships with a diverse network of colleagues. People who know your character are less likely to believe baseless rumors. These alliances can also serve as sources of information and support. Third, do not engage in mudslinging or counter-gossip. It lowers you to the saboteur's level and can backfire. If a specific, damaging falsehood comes directly to your attention and you can address it factually and calmly with the relevant parties, do so. But avoid getting drawn into a protracted he said, she said battle. Fourth, focus on your circle of control. You cannot control what a malicious person says, but you can control your reactions and your actions. Continue to be professional, collaborative, and positive. Let your character speak for itself. Fifth, this situation calls for a deep dive into shadow work, not just for the saboteur, but for yourself. Ask, what parts of my persona are being attacked? Is there any truth, however distorted, that I need to acknowledge and integrate? Sometimes, understanding why certain barbs hit so hard can reveal unhealed aspects within us. The individuation process involves developing a robust sense of self that is less dependent on external validation and more resilient to external attacks on your reputation. Your true self knows its worth, even if others are temporarily fooled. Sixth warning sign, the deceptive guide, the mentor who engineers your failure. This is a particularly insidious form of sabotage because it comes disguised as support, guidance, or even mentorship. This colleague will offer to help you, give you advice, assign you tasks, or volunteer you for projects, all under the guise of fostering your growth and development. However, their advice is subtly flawed. The tasks are designed to be overwhelmingly difficult or set up for failure, and the projects they steer you towards are known minefields. Their persona is that of the wise, benevolent senior, but their shadow agenda is to watch you stumble and fall. Psychologically, this behavior can stem from a deeply twisted place. Perhaps this mentor harbors resentment from their own career disappointments, projecting their unfulfilled ambitions or past failures onto you. They might see your potential, and rather than nurturing it as a true mentor would, they feel compelled to extinguish it to alleviate their own feelings of inadequacy or envy. This is a corruption of the wise old man-woman archetype, where the wisdom is perverted into cunning manipulation. Their own individuation process has likely been severely arrested. They are stuck in a bitter place and derive a perverse satisfaction from ensuring others remain stuck or fail, especially those who show the promise they themselves couldn't realize. They are the false gurus leading you down paths of their own making, designed for your derailment. Imagine a senior colleague, a leaner, who takes you under her wing. She suggests you lead a new, high-profile initiative, emphasizing what a great learning opportunity it will be. What she fails to mention is that the project has a history of intractable problems, insufficient resources, and has been a career killer for others. Or she might give you helpful advice on how to handle a difficult stakeholder, advice that, if followed, actually exacerbates the conflict. She'll then feign sympathy when things go wrong, perhaps even saying, "Well, you live and learn," subtly reinforcing the idea that the failure was yours alone. The negative consequences are severe. You not only fail at tasks or projects, but your confidence is shattered because you believe you failed despite having expert guidance. You might lose credibility, miss out on genuine opportunities for advancement, and waste significant time and energy on endeavors doomed from the start. Worst of all, your ability to trust genuine mentors and helpful colleagues in the future can be deeply damaged. You become wary of help, tired of trying when every opportunity feels like a trap. The actionable steps require heightened discernment and a healthy skepticism. First, critically evaluate all advice, especially from someone whose motives you might question. Does it logically hold up? What are the potential downsides they aren't mentioning? Seek second opinions from other trusted colleagues or mentors. Don't take any single piece of advice as gospel, especially for high-stakes decisions. Second, do your due diligence on any opportunities or projects offered or assigned, particularly if they come from this individual. Research the history of the project, talk to others who have been involved, understand the real risks and challenges before committing. Third, learn to say no or to negotiate terms. If a task seems unreasonable or ill-defined, ask clarifying questions. Push back respectfully if necessary. Thank you for this opportunity. To ensure I can deliver the best results, could we clarify the budget, resources, timeline, known challenges for this? This shows you're thinking critically. Fourth, pay close attention to patterns. If this colleague's advice consistently leads to poor outcomes for you or others, that's a major red flag. Trust these observed patterns over their supportive persona. Finally, this situation is a powerful catalyst for developing your own inner wisdom, your inner sage. The individuation journey is about learning to trust your own judgment and intuition above all else. When you encounter a false guide, it forces you to sharpen your discernment and connect more deeply with your own authentic path, rather than blindly following one laid out by someone with a hidden, shadow agenda. The seventh warning sign, the architect of isolation, systematically severing your connections. This saboteur understands a fundamental truth: isolation breeds vulnerability. Their strategy involves subtly or overtly trying to alienate you from your colleagues, your support network within the workplace, and anyone who might offer you assistance, perspective, or solidarity. They might achieve this by spreading misinformation about you to others, as the reputation assassin does, or by misrepresenting others' feelings or intentions towards you. They might try to monopolize your time with certain key people, subtly excluding you from group activities or important informal discussions where bonds are strengthened. Their aim is to cut you off, making you an easier target for other forms of sabotage and making it harder for you to gather support or verify information. From a psychological perspective, this individual may themselves fear connection or operate from a divide-and-conquer mentality learned from past dysfunctional environments. Their own ability to form healthy, reciprocal relationships may be impaired, reflecting an issue in their anima-animus development, the archetypal representations of the feminine in men and the masculine in women, crucial for balanced relating. By projecting this dysfunction outwards, they attempt to create an environment where others are as disconnected as they feel internally. They might unconsciously believe that if you are well connected and supported, you are less controllable and their own influence is diminished. Their shadow thrives in environments of mistrust and fragmentation. Consider a colleague, Ben, who always seems to have a confidential negative story about another team member just when you're starting to build a good rapport with them. Just a heads up, I heard other colleague was complaining about your approach to X, he might say, planting a seed of distrust. Or if you mention a positive interaction, he might counter with, be careful with them, they have a reputation for being two-faced. Ben might also make a point of accidentally scheduling important informal team check-ins when he knows you're unavailable, then summarize them in a way that makes you feel perpetually out of the loop and disconnected from the group's true pulse. The goal is to make you feel like you can only trust him, or conversely, that you can trust no one, leaving you adrift. The negative consequences of being isolated are profound. You lose valuable emotional and practical support. Your perspective narrows because you're not getting diverse feedback or information. You become more susceptible to stress and burnout. When facing challenges, you feel like you have to go it alone. This can severely hamper your ability to navigate workplace politics, contribute effectively in teams, and simply feel a sense of belonging and psychological safety at work. You become stuck in a lonely echo chamber, making it harder to break cycles of negativity. Actionable steps must focus on proactively building and maintaining your connections, despite the saboteur's efforts. First, make a conscious effort to cultivate genuine, positive relationships with a variety of colleagues. Don't rely on one or two individuals for your workplace social or informational needs. Be open, approachable, and supportive of others. Second, when you hear negative information about a colleague from a suspected saboteur, treat it with extreme skepticism. Consider the source. If possible and appropriate, seek to verify it, or better yet, form your own opinions based on direct experience. Third, be inclusive yourself. Invite others to coffee, share relevant information openly when appropriate, and make efforts to connect, especially with those the saboteur might be trying to isolate you from. Fourth, do not allow the saboteur to become your primary conduit of information about team dynamics or others' opinions. Seek information from multiple sources. If you feel you're being excluded, politely and proactively seek inclusion. I noticed there was a quick chat about Project Y. I'd love to catch up on any key takeaways when you have a moment. Fifth, on a deeper psychological level, this is a call to examine your own relational patterns. Are you prone to withdrawing when feeling threatened? Do you find it difficult to build alliances? Understanding your own tendencies can help you consciously counteract them when under attack. The individuation journey is not solitary. It involves navigating the world of relationships with wisdom and strength. Building a resilient support system is an act of self-preservation and empowerment. Recognizing these warning signs, the chameleon of undermining, the gatekeeper of shadows, the credit cannibal, the reality warper, the reputation assassin, the deceptive guide, and the architect of isolation, is not about descending into a state of perpetual suspicion. It's about waking up. It's about understanding that the workplace, like any human system, is a fertile ground for the expression of unconscious drives, shadow projections, and arrested personal development. The brutal truth is that not everyone has your best interests at heart. Some are so mired in their own internal struggles, so terrified of their own inadequacy, or so uncommitted to their own individuation that they actively seek to hinder yours. But here is the empowering truth. Every encounter with these dynamics, however painful, is an opportunity. It's an invitation to engage in your own shadow work, to ask what vulnerabilities within you are being triggered or exploited. Is it a need for external validation that the underminer preys upon? A fear of confrontation that allows the credit thief to flourish? An ungroundedness in your own reality that the gaslighter exploits? This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming every part of yourself, strengthening your core, and becoming so psychologically robust that these manipulations lose their power. The path to individuation, to becoming a whole, authentic self, is rarely smooth. It often involves navigating the darkness, both within and without. These colleagues, these saboteurs, are in a challenging way catalysts. They force you to sharpen your discernment, to strengthen your boundaries, to connect more deeply with your intuition, and to stand more firmly in your own truth. They push you to develop the very qualities you need to not just survive, but to thrive and transform. So what now? You arm yourself with awareness. You document, you observe, you seek trusted counsel. You practice radical self-honesty about your own patterns and triggers. You engage in journaling for mental health, not just to vent, but to analyze, to understand, to connect with your unconscious wisdom. You make conscious choices about who you engage with and how. You learn to protect your energy, your ideas, and your psychological space with fierce intentionality. This is not just about stopping a colleague from sabotaging you. It's about how to stop self-sabotaging by allowing these dynamics to diminish you. It's about breaking cycles of feeling stuck and tired of trying. This is your life advice, your motivation, your inspiration to wake up fully. The transformation begins when you decide that your personal development, your mental health, and your journey towards becoming your truest self are non-negotiable. Use these warning signs not as sources of fear, but as beacons, illuminating the path you must walk to reclaim your power and change your life from the inside out. The stuck feeling dissipates when you realize that even in the face of external sabotage, the ultimate agency for your growth and your response rests firmly and unshakably with you.